Hey there, comedy fans. Welcome to My First Joke, the podcast where we dive into the hilarious stories of how comedians got their start. I'm your host, Kareem Kanji. Today, I am joined by Sandra Battaglini, one of Toronto's funniest stand-up comics. Before we get started, don't forget, subscribe to My First Joke wherever you listen to podcasts. If you enjoy what you hear, share it with your friends, leave a review, and hit us with those 5 stars. And if you want to stay in the loop, follow me on Instagram at Kareem Kanji. All right, everyone ready? Let's get into it.
Everyone's
Here's my conversation with Sandra Battaglini. Hey Sandra,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm good. You?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, first question to you, Sandra. Why stand up? What inspired you to get started?
Well, I had taken classes at Second City, improv classes, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a few of us in the class who were like, let's try stand up. And yeah, and I don't know, we just like I went and tried it one night at the Laugh Resort, which was a club
I
on
remember
King
that
Street.
place.
Yeah.
You walk up
So,
the stairs, right? I think, yeah.
no, you go down the stairs.
Is it down? Was it down the stairs, the Laugh Resort?
Yeah.
That was
Was
my
it?
first. That was my first comedy club I ever went to in Toronto.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that was the first place I performed at.
Wow.
My very first set was there. So yeah, I thought I would try it, and it was like the first time was not that great.
So you thought, let's do it.
No, like it just no. That's what I mean. Like it wasn't it was the second time at Yuk Yuks that I did that. That was still one of the best sets I think I've ever had. Where I told jokes. Like I told more stories the first time. I thought, oh, this story is going to be hilarious, and
Yeah.
you know, I mean, if I would tell the story now, it would be different. But then it was just, I just remember
Ah,
like, oh my god, what the fuck is happening here? Yeah,
wow. Okay, so you're at the Laugh Resort.
right.
You're telling your first joke. You're telling a story. Do you remember?
Yes. So
Tell
it
me
was
what.
basically so like my first job was on was in the financial district. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I did this like in junior investment advisor program. It was like through Nesbitt Burns, which is the brokerage arm of Bank of Montreal.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I did this program because I didn't know the difference between a stock or a bond, and I thought, oh my god, like let's find out about that. Let's see what that is. Anyways, I joined this program, and of course, like I had to buy new clothes, and so I buy
Hmm.
new clothes, but new outfit. I buy these like these shoes. They're like Gucci knockoffs, right, from Town Shoes, whatever. And the first day, was it the first day I wore them or something like this? I'm like walking along King Street and I'm in so much pain. And then I'm like, yo, these like all the men are walking ahead of me and I'm just in pain. I was like, these shoes do not serve anybody anything. So later that night, I meet up with my a friend of mine from high school, Jessica Ning. I'm originally from Sudbury. And we go to the sushi bar and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go to the bathroom. And when I go to the bathroom, I have to go downstairs, and my heel gets caught on those like silver, those like metal. What do they call? There's a name for them at the edge of the stair,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
my heel got caught. And then I slid down the stairs on my ass, and then I basically when I went home, I like looked like Peter Pan because I had no heels on my shoes. So I had to. Anyway, so that was the story I told, and that was the story I told.
So
I
you said it didn't go well. Um,
I mean, it didn't go like well in the sense of like there wasn't laughs. Like people, I think people were engaged in the story, but it wasn't
yeah.
like it. I didn't know how to tell a joke. Like what I didn't
Hmm.
know how to tell. So that's what it was. You know what I mean? And then I tried. Yeah, and then I went to the Yuk Yuks like shortly thereafter, and that set was like the best. Because I was
Okay.
telling jokes. Because I told jokes that night. I didn't tell jokes.
You told a story that you thought was funny, and then your second time you went to Yuk Yuks, And you didn't tell a story, but you just told jokes.
Yeah, because the story that I
Okay.
told, like my friends from improv class, like I told them this story. They're like, "Oh my god, that story's hilarious!" And of course, I always was one to tell stories, like ever since I was a little girl. So
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, these guys liked it, so why don't I try it on the stage?" So yeah, so that night told stories. Yuk Yuks told jokes.
So do you remember one of your jokes from your Yuck Yuck debut?
Yeah, because it was about my dad. So I started talking about my dad, and
Okay.
my dad my dad's famous advice to me my whole life was like he'd always say like not trust the people. He's like he goes because you can't even trust the shirt on your own back. And I'm like, oh my god, like so now when I wake up in the morning, like I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, don't fuck with me, like I'm talking to my shirt, like don't fuck with me. So that was one of the jokes, but then there was another joke. But yeah, so I just started talking about my dad.
So tell me the reaction of the crowd, the different because I'm guessing you're basing whether you did good or not based on the crowd reaction, right?
On the
So
laughter.
yeah, so while your friends laughed at your heel joke or your heel story, they found it funny. Patrons at a comedy club didn't sort of were listening. Okay, that's a nice story, but
Yeah, good for you.
there
Yeah.
there was good for you, Peter Pan. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess every 30 seconds or every minute you're getting a laugh at the at Yuck Yucks.
Oh yeah, or even more. Yeah, depend. Yeah, that was because then I think I told stories about my dad that night with things that he said. I don't know if I said anything else. I don't remember. Like what I had 5 minutes. It was the new open mic, and I remember the host. I think it was Jack Norman, and he was like, "This is her first time," or like one of her first times, and people were like,
Yeah,
"Oh my god!" Like, of course the audience reacted, and Ryan Bell. I remember Ryan Belville was on that show,
yeah.
um, and Sean Majunder, and so like when other comics were like, "Oh my god, that's funny," like you feel like, "Oh okay, then I told the right story, or told the right story. I told jokes, so
Nice.
yeah."
Wow. Um, so besides sort of the change of the story to the jokes, I has your style or how has I'm guessing your style has evolved. You've been in the game for many years. How have you changed your style or how has your style changed you?
I mean, I think that like I always like so I studied clown like in 2002, 2003, and the first time I did stand up was like 2001. And so like I've been doing clown as well, and I mean I don't know how familiar you are with it, but the one thing that I left clown with, because that's a whole thing, but was I wanted to get good at stand up. And and I had this desire. I would, like, when I'm talking to the universe or to God or whatever, it's like I want to be able to tell stories like I do when I'm with friends and family on stage. And so clown really got me to that place because
Mm.
clown is all about like the way that we're taught it is like, it's like there's this wild abandonment that you get into, that you follow these impulses because you create all these like masks, or basically they're personas or characters that come out of like a whole series of exercises, and like creating a mask out of clay and then putting a nose on, and it's through like a motion and a gesture that you start to build this character, but it's really part of you because you know
Mm.
in the style that I learned, it's like, the clown has six directions to the self because it's based in North American Indian like clowning. Um,
Yeah.
so, so yeah, that following that impulse and like more, that really got me like that was a really big thing, is the clown component, because I did stand, like, so I do the Laugh Resort, I did Yuck Yucks, and then I might have done a couple other places stand up, but then I was like, I don't want to keep repeating the same jokes. Like, it
Ah,
bothered me, and I didn't really know how to write. Like, I was like, well, I talked about my dad. I'm not going to keep talking about my dad. A
yeah.
little did I know that that's kind of a little bit what you do, but I also just was like, I want to know how to write, or whatever. So I don't know. Like, I think that. I've always, it's always me telling these stories.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like the style is kind of like, I've often talked about my family, and I was in the advertising business. So a
Oh,
lot of my jokes are about advertisements before I got into stand up, and even while I was doing it. So I don't know, like how much my style has changed. I think that I know that I remember certain turning points of being able to like, just riff. Like I remember that. I
yeah.
remember being able to just riff. Like I wasn't able to do that before. Like I would really be meticulous about writing everything, and I still do. Like I still when I, when you do new material nights, you might have a premise, you might have a couple of things you want to say, and then you're working stuff out. But then I eventually like I will really write that out. I'll
Hmm.
really write it. So like I've always really just written a lot of, and a lot people would often ask me like, "Oh, was that all improvised?" And it's like, yeah, yes, there are lots of times where it is improvised, but I think even in the jokes that I tell, sometimes it seems like it is improvised. But yeah, so I think there are these kinds of moments, turning points, I guess, or crossroads in being in how you tell the joke and how you are on stage. Um, that those are the things that evolve. But me, I mean, of course, we all evolve as human beings, whatever. But I think I've always been this sort of same character throughout this whole time
All
as
right.
as the stand up.
Yeah.
And maybe like it's always been me, like the way I would tell stories, but it's kind of like I've evolved out of that character as my from myself, like as the person, I've evolved out of wanting, like, oh my god, like talking a lot and talking to people and trying to make people laugh. I mean, I do that on stage, but like, in my
You're more
regular life.
confident.
What's
You're
that?
more, you're more confident.
Yeah, that's it. And then
Yeah.
you don't have to like, I don't know. I don't spend that much time around a lot of people. Like it depends. But like
Yeah.
it's like I do my shows, and then, a lot of the during the day it's a lot of like everything, you're working now, you're meditating, you're writing, you're doing work. But I can only handle you know, I can only handle so much of people. You know what I
Fair.
mean?
Fair
Because we
enough.
handle so much of people as what our job is. So
Yeah.
there's so much energy that goes into that.
Yeah, I understand. So listen, Sandra, you've done a number of specials.
Yeah.
You've been on our television screens.
Yeah.
Um, do you have this feeling that you've made it, or is there something you're chasing? Tell me about this thing that, making it. What does that mean to you?
No, I don't think like I think it's an illusion to make it,
Ah,
because it's different. It's made differently in different places.
okay.
So that's what like being in Canada,
Yeah.
is a whole other game from probably from many parts of the world, or many jurisdictions where comedy is practiced the way it is,
Yeah.
because we have such a small film and TV industry, and we don't have access to America. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, I don't feel like, yeah, what am I chasing? I mean, really, like the thing that, brings me a lot of joy, obviously, is performing, but writing, screenplays and TV concepts like that's the thing that, like, want to make. I want to just make that, have more, one of my concepts, or many of all the concepts, be made. So, yeah, chasing the thing, it's like I'm less about that, because I see now that that's an illusion, and what does it even mean? Because now we're in
Ah,
this age of social media, and it's a whole other game now, and it's crazy, and like if you're not doing it, then you feel like you're a failure. And I don't feel like that much. I don't feel, I don't put my head in that place too much anymore, but no, I don't feel like I've made it. Like maybe I've made certain things, like, but yeah, like I don't. No, I mean it's a long way.
fair. Fair enough.
Well, because
Fair
there's
enough.
so many things that are maybe one perceives as milestones, but
Yeah.
it's like you got to go outside of the country, and I don't mean move outside of the country, although that seems to be the path right now because you
Yeah.
can't really do much here, and then
Mm.
if you got to go to the States, like that's I don't know if you're familiar, but I've been lobbying for comedy the last 10 years, and because of like all of these very peculiar um, this very peculiar context within which Canadian comedy exists,
Mm.
and it's very weird and bizarre, and mostly, and it's the direct result of being beside this media giant,
Yeah. Fair
and
enough.
not having access to it, like in a
Mm.
free reciprocal way, in the way that a free trade agreement should be, but and then the way that American comedians can come here and perform, but we can't do the same, and that's the big hindrance.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't leave. Like I wasn't. I mean, I've gone to the States many times to perform, but to move and to be able to make a big move like that, it was just sort of life experiences thus far. Like didn't allow me to just get up and move. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I just couldn't.
Yeah. Fair
I
enough.
mean,
Fair enough.
I guess I could have, but I couldn't have.
I hear you. Sandra, this has been fun. I've learned a lot speaking with you. If people want to follow you, find out when your next show is in their town, where's the best place? Should they follow you on Instagram or website?
Yeah.
Where can they go?
Instagram, sandrabattaglini.com. I mean, I don't know if this will get published before Friday, but I am shooting my next special February 28th, which is this Friday, at the Comedy Bar on Danforth, 7 and 9 p.m. So if anybody want to come,
I will pimp it out. This won't be up before Friday, but I will pimp it out. I follow you on Instagram, so I'll make sure to promote that. Thank you so much, Sandra. Thanks to all of you for tuning into this episode of My First Joke. I hope you had as much fun listening as I had chatting with Sandra. If you enjoyed the show, again, subscribe to My First Joke wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Share it with your friends and take a moment to rate and review the podcast. And if you want to follow our show, you can go check out our website at myfirstjoke.ca. My name is Kareem Kanji. Until next time.
have peace.